10,000 people will be allowed to attend larger organised outdoor events like concerts. Scientists say coronavirus symptoms affecting mental health appears to be common rather than the exception. Studies from 30 countries involved more than 100,000 people. Researchers found symptoms like fatigue and depression may be in those with mild cases. The statue of slave trader Edward Colston that was ripped down by anti-racism protesters in Bristol is going on public display. The bronze memorial was pulled from its plinth and dumped in the harbour a year ago. It's now been placed in a museum in the city alongside placards from the protest and a timeline of events. These people in Bristol think it's the right decision.
It's an opportunity for people to educate the other people that come to visit it.
Yeah, why not? Because I believe things have moved on.
It's from a time where things were completely different, and I think it's important that it's memorised for what it represents now.
Production on the latest Mission Impossible film has been delayed again because of the pandemic. Filming in the UK has been halted for 2 weeks following positive COVID tests among the crew. The movie starring Tom Cruise is set for release in May next year. In the city a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading down 1 point at 70.62, and the pound buys $1.41 and €1.16. The weather, cloudy for the east and southeast with some rain, sunny spells elsewhere, particularly for Wales and the west and north of England. The odd shower for Northern Ireland and western Scotland, a high of 21 degrees. From Global's newsroom, I'm Simon Conway.
Ollie's thank you finest burgers.
Because I struggled with reading, Mum suggested we could burgers instead. I think it was just so I'd feed the rest of them again and again.
Middle of April, we saw an all-time high in Bitcoin of nearly $65,000, and as we're releasing this in the middle of May, the price has experienced a major correction clear down to $40,000. For the people not accustomed to an asset with this much volatility, I've tried to bring on two of the best guests to assist through the chaos, and that's Jeff Booth and Lynn Alden. During the show, we address many hot topics currently in the news, from energy concerns, centralization concerns, speed of payment concerns, the altcoin season that we're currently seeing, how corporate boards might be viewing the volatility, and much, much more. I'm super thankful to Lynn and Jeff to record this discussion with nearly no advance notice, and I hope you guys enjoy the chat.
You're listening to Bitcoin Fundamentals by the Investors Podcast Network. Now for your host, Preston Pish.
All right, so here we are. Like we said in the introduction, I'm here with Lynn Alden, Jeff Booth. Guys, just so excited to have you here to have this chat because, man, it's getting crazy out there. It's getting a little insane. So I wanted to just open it up to you guys. Like, how are you guys seeing things right now? Because it kind of, to me, it felt like this thing was on a rocket ship, and then somebody shot the wing off over the weekend, and now it's just chaos and FUD and fear, and people are going crazy. So I just want to kind of capture some of your thoughts initially, and we'll go from there.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the way I'm looking at it is that, we can use different kind of on-chain indicators and basic, sentiment analysis to see how it's going. And for a while, it was kind of on track where the bull market looked a lot like the 2017 post-halving bull market. And so now it's starting to look a little bit more like the 2013 bull market, where it had a longer correction in the middle there. It had like a 6-month, pretty significant correction. But it's interesting so far because it's kind of a hybrid. So in terms of percent loss, it doesn't really deviate from the 2017, bull market at all. So some of those corrections were down, in the high 30% range, close to 40% in some cases. None of them lasted this kind of 3-month period that we're seeing now, and so that in that way it's looking a little bit more like the 2013 period. And so I'm kind of analyzing it like I do any other asset class. So for example, in my research service, I cover multiple different asset classes, and generally what you see is that if everybody kind of, within an industry gets kind of super bullish at the same time, that's when you're likely to have kind of pullbacks and corrections and things like that. So I think now we're seeing that. I saw a similar thing with gold last year, where after the initial kind of CARES Act fiscal stimulus. We saw, of course, the big run up in gold. But then when you got to kind of late summer of 2020, you started to get a real rates kind of rising a little bit off of their lows. You started to get a rollover in gold sentiment, right? So you were in kind of a long-term gold, kind of an 8-month correction. And just when everybody kind of thought it was dead, that's of course when it kind of bottoms a little bit and shows some life. And so we kind of see some of the things with Bitcoin where it's on, they're on different clocks, right? So when while gold was correcting that time and it kind of kind of being hard by that rising real rate phenomenon, Bitcoin was doing better. And so now it's rolling over a little bit. We have some of the people that, for example, have been avoiding it this whole time, now doing victory laps because it went down 30-some%, kind of ignoring the fact that it went up hundreds of percent in the cycle. And so, it's hard to say whether or not this has been the bottom or if we're going to see a deeper correction later. But so far, the overall network effects are still in place. It's just that if you look across the board at sentiment, you had pretty strong sentiment in Bitcoin, and then you had really bubbly sentiment in the broader, the crypto space, where you had Ethereum Classic forming Ethereum, you had Dogecoin, going to the moon, you had, people were inventing, new coins called Cumrocket and things like that. And so, when you get to that phase, you start to get a diluted effect in the industry where a lot of the enthusiasm that might otherwise be for Bitcoin starts spreading out. And we started to get kind of this temporary issue where Bitcoin scarcity stops mattering because everyone can just issue more coins and people can pile into more coins. It's kind of a similar thing you see at the top of equity bull markets, or at least local tops, I should say, where if there's a crazy demand for equities, all sorts of crappy companies can issue equity and give as much equity as people want. And it's not until you kind of clear some of that out that you see which companies actually, their equity is really worth something.
So considering we still have many altcoins outperforming Bitcoin, is your opinion that there's still more selling to go from where we're at right now? Just for people, I think we're around 44,000 right now. Based on what you're saying, it sounds to me like you think that there's a little bit more selling to happen.
I don't have a strong opinion either way. I mean, I think, we haven't seen some crazy capitulation where just, really kind of like a death spike. But, we've seen a pretty prolonged down move. And so I'm kind of at the point now where I'm not getting very clear intermediate term price signals. And so I don't, I try to do the thing where if I have conviction about something, I'll say it. And if I don't know something, I'll say I don't know. And so in terms of the next 3 months or so, I don't have a firm opinion either way about Bitcoin's move. I remain basically strategically bullish while being pretty agnostic about near-term price action at this time.
Jeff?
I think that just was a really great way to say it. Nothing has changed. Nothing on the structural why Bitcoin, and the game that's going to be played for a long time, up and down on the way through. You have a network effect. And one thing I think a lot of people are making a mistake on Bitcoin and comparing the other altcoins is they're comparing it to, let's say, in the technology world, Google or Yahoo. This is a protocol. It's like investing in the internet with a network effect. and so the other things on top aren't that. But to Lynn's point, from let's look at 99, 2000 as in the internet world. You had a whole bunch of companies in a short term doing better than Amazon. Because when they could say balls.com, like crazy things that would that because you could write a business plan and put it on an app and anybody would finance it, hoping to catch the magic of Amazon and others. And it creates.
There you go, mate. Have a good day and good luck.
Race in the market trying to get rich quick schemes.
Bye.
And so
See you
when
later.
you see a bunch of the altcoins and everything else, that's what I see. I see a really bubbly type of market. What I worry about a little bit is that's going to hurt some people, and they're going to miss kind of the really important aspects of why Bitcoin is important, really critical, and they're going to kind of lump all the cryptocurrencies in the same. But if you fast forward what happened in the past, a whole bunch of premium names also fell, and
it on his balance sheet a couple months back. I think his cost basis is still lower than where we're at right now at $24,000. Jack Dorsey talked about how Bitcoin creates this massive incentive structure for renewable energy. Elon replies to Jack Dorsey saying he agrees, and then out of nowhere, this past weekend, I think before the weekend started, Elon comes out and says that he thinks that there's energy concerns with Bitcoin. He says that he's working with Dogecoin developers to make Doge better. He's watching something that, as of last night, he said he still has all of it on his balance sheet except for that 10% that he sold. He still has it sitting on his balance sheet. But all of his comments are causing the price of Bitcoin to plummet, even though it's sitting on his balance sheet. The price of Tesla is plummeting. So what? I'm trying to wrap my head around why, right? I'm just asking myself, why would somebody go out and do this? Even if you did believe this stuff, you'd think you'd be quiet about it as you do more research. I mean, we all know Elon is not your typical person, especially while on Twitter. But talk us through how you're interpreting all these mixed signals. It's so strange to me. But Lynn, take it away. What are your thoughts?
So I mean, if you look at his history with Bitcoin, even before he bought it, he was kind of like started with Bitcoin while talking about Dogecoin. And back in December, he tweeted, I think he phrased it as, Bitcoin is almost as BS as fiat.
Yeah.
And I remember because one of my friends kind of highlighted that. He's like, oh, he's gonna make the Bitcoiners angry. And so I just put a meme out there that was like, it's kind of basically how basically that Winnie the Pooh meme where he looks kind of slumpy and then he's in like a tux. So I wrote like the slumpy versions being long Bitcoin and Tesla, and like the more sophisticated versions like long Bitcoin, short Tesla. And that's basically so there's a lot of kind of for a while there's been kind of like a lot of pro Tesla, pro Elon feelings in the Bitcoin community for a while, and I've always been somewhat out of consensus in the sense that maybe it's because I come from a little bit more of a value investing background.
You and me both, Lynn.
Exactly.
Because I've always had the same opinion. Like, I never got Tesla, but I was a Bitcoiner. I felt like such an oddball.
Yes, I was always critical of Tesla, and because so Musk has, and it's not one of those things like there's obviously good engineering happening at Tesla, but it's more about the fact that he tends to over-promise and under-deliver and slower than his initial forecast. If you kind of go back and look at his timeline for when automatic driving would be here and things like that, right? Basically he's kind of inherently a marketer at heart, and he seems kind of all over the place, especially on Twitter. And so I think it's one of those things where it's really important, I think, for Bitcoin not to the Bitcoin community not to get caught up with hero figures, or I actually think Peter McCormack phrased it best, like basically single person worship is like centralization, or however he phrased it, like if you're basically relying on the opinion of one man, that's where you're going to run into issues. And so overall, I think there's a lot of theorizing about why he changed his opinion. One is just his opinion changes a lot of things, and so I wouldn't necessarily say there's a reason for it. If there is a reason for it, it's possible that, for example, because Tesla's involved in renewable energy credits, that he got a tap on the shoulder from someone, for example, or the company did, the adults in the room, I guess you could say, and that they had to change something up and change their opinion of the energy environment. It's really hard to say because we're not necessarily working with a kind of the standard CEO here.
Here's a different way to look at it. This is actually the best thing on the planet for Bitcoin. It is proving why decentralization matters. So if you constantly look at Satoshi's white paper and everything else, the root problem with conventional currency is that trust is required to make it work. And central governments have to erode that trust. And so as somebody gains more and more power, over you, or over your finances, or anything else. The rest of society is up to kind of whim and fancy of that person. And even if that person is, like, we're all trying to read in what he's thinking. I personally believe that he did get a tap on ESG, and it became, okay, I have to softly backpedal. I won't totally go out, but I still have to softly backpedal to be able to protect kind of credits and everything else. That's what I believe. I could be totally wrong. It could be he's just learning, like, and you know how people learn, and then they go into altcoins, and they're all over the map because they don't really understand it. So he could be just a very powerful person learning publicly, and crazy markets all the way through. It actually doesn't matter on each of those tangents. What matters is it's proving the thesis on why decentralization is the most important gift to humanity, because it pushes the power of the power to individuals rather than centralizing power.
So he had, and I'm assuming, Lynn, you agree with Jeff there?
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's a shame that so it's interesting because we're seeing a lot of kind of interesting news kind of get kind of overshadowed by the Elon thing, right? So, for example, I've been covering the fact that NIDIG has had a number of interesting kind of announcements lately, where they brought over the executive from Bridgewater. They've announced like partnerships with banks, to kind of basically bring Bitcoin to banking, and so that's kind of more signal to noise stuff where, for example, the network effect continues to strengthen. Obviously, for people following Taproot, that's obviously making advancements as well. And so you actually see the underlying technology getting better. You see the network effects getting better. But then on top of that, you see we have the crazy price action and the charismatic personalities, and then the Twitter wars. That's the stuff that's getting